Welcome to Stoic Mindset, where ancient wisdom meets modern challenges. Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful yet misunderstood concepts in Stoic philosophy, the art of demonstrating your value without saying a word. If you've ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or struggled to make your worth known in a world that seems to reward the loudest voices, this video will transform how you think about personal value and recognition. Make sure to subscribe to Stoic Mindset and hit the notification bell, because what you're about to learn could fundamentally change how you navigate every relationship, every workplace interaction, and every social situation for the rest of your life. The paradox of modern recognition. We live in an age of constant self-promotion. Social media has turned everyone into their own marketing department, broadcasting achievements, thoughts, and experiences to anyone who will listen. Yet paradoxically, the more we shout about our accomplishments, the less valuable they seem to become. Have you noticed how the people you respect most rarely talk about their achievements? How the truly successful seem to carry themselves with a quiet confidence that speaks louder than any words could? This isn't coincidence, it's the manifestation of an ancient truth that the Stoics understood thousands of years ago. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in his private journal, later published as Meditations, that a man's worth is no greater than his ambitions. But here's what most people miss. He never intended these words for public consumption. He was writing to himself in private, demonstrating through action the very principle we're discussing today. The most powerful demonstration of value comes not from proclamation, but from consistent, silent action that speaks for itself. Think about the last time someone tried to convince you of their importance. Perhaps they dropped names, mentioned their accomplishments repeatedly, or constantly steered conversations back to their achievements. How did it make you feel? Chances are you felt skeptical, maybe even annoyed. Now contrast that with someone who quietly solved a problem, who was there when needed, without fanfare, who let their work speak for itself. Which person earned your genuine respect? This fundamental human response to authentic value versus proclaimed value is at the heart of what we're exploring today, the ancient wisdom of silent strength. The Stoics understood something profound about human nature that modern psychology is only now catching up to. They recognized that true strength doesn't need to announce itself. Epictetus, who started as a slave and became one of the most influential philosophers in history, taught that wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This principle extends far beyond material wealth. It applies to our need for recognition, validation, and external approval. When you demonstrate value in silence, you're practicing what the Stoics called autarkia, self-sufficiency. This doesn't mean isolation or refusing help from others. Instead, it means that your sense of worth comes within, from your alignment with virtue and wisdom, rather than from external validation. This internal locus of control is what gives you the unshakable confidence that others find so magnetic. Consider the story of Cato the Younger, a Roman senator known for his unwavering principles. When offered bribes, positions of power, or opportunities to compromise his values for personal gain, Cato simply refused, often without explanation or justification. His actions spoke so loudly that even his enemies respected him. When civil war came to Rome, soldiers followed Cato not because he gave rousing speeches about his leadership qualities, but because his life was a testament to his values. His suicide, rather than living under what he saw as tyranny, became one of the most powerful political statements in Roman history, and he made it in complete silence. The psychology behind silent value. Modern neuroscience has revealed something fascinating about how our brains process information about others. When someone tells us they're trustworthy, competent, or valuable, our brains actually become more skeptical. The anterior cingulate cortex, the part of our brain responsible for detecting inconsistencies and potential threats, becomes more active. We're literally wired to be suspicious of self-promotion. However, when we observe someone's actions over time, when we see consistency between their values and their behavior without them pointing it out to us, a different part of our brain engages. The mirror neuron system, which helps us understand and empathize with others, becomes active. We begin to internalize their qualities as genuine because we've discovered them ourselves rather than being told about them. This is why showing rather than telling is so powerful. When you demonstrate value through consistent action, you're allowing others to draw their own conclusions. And conclusions we draw ourselves are always more powerful than those we're told to believe. It's the psychological foundation of why silent demonstration of value is so much more effective than verbal proclamation. Think about the most influential people in your life, the ones who truly shaped who you are. Were they the ones who constantly told you about their achievements and qualities? Or were they the ones who simply lived in a way that inspired you? The teacher who stayed after class without being asked, the parent who sacrificed without mentioning it, the friend who showed up during tough times without making it about themselves. These silent demonstrations of value create lasting impressions that words never could. The 5 pillars of silent value. First pillar, consistent excellence. The foundation of demonstrating value in silence is consistent excellence in everything you do. This doesn't mean perfection. The Stoics were clear that perfection is impossible for humans. Instead, it means bringing your full attention and effort to whatever task is before you, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this extensively, noting that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Every obstacle, every mundane task, every challenge becomes an opportunity to demonstrate your value through how you handle it. When you consistently deliver quality work without needing recognition for each accomplishment, people begin to notice a pattern. They start to associate you with reliability and excellence. This consistent excellence should extend to all areas of your life. The Stoics believed in the unity of virtue. You cannot be virtuous in one area of life while being negligent in another. The way you treat the janitor should be the same as how you treat the CEO. The effort you put into a task when no one is watching should match what you do when all eyes are on you. This consistency creates an aura of authenticity that people instinctively recognize and respect. Second pillar, emotional mastery. The second pillar is perhaps the most challenging yet most powerful, emotional mastery. The Stoics called this ataraxia, a state of serene calmness regardless of external circumstances. When others panic, you remain centered. When others lash out in anger, you respond with measured wisdom. When others crumble under pressure, you become even more focused. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions or becoming a robot. The Stoics experienced emotions just like everyone else. The difference was in how they responded to these emotions. They recognized that while we cannot control our initial emotional reactions, we can control how we act on them. This space between stimulus and response is where your true value is demonstrated. Imagine being in a high-pressure meeting where everything is going wrong. The project is behind schedule, over budget, and the client is furious. While others are pointing fingers, making excuses, or panicking, you remain calm. You acknowledge the situation without sugarcoating it, then immediately focus on solutions. You don't need to announce that you're the calm one, that you're being constructive while others are being destructive. Your demeanor and actions make it obvious. This silent demonstration of emotional mastery is worth more than any self-proclaimed leadership quality. Third pillar, strategic generosity. The third pillar involves what I call strategic generosity, giving value to others without keeping score or seeking recognition. This isn't about being a doormat or giving until you're depleted. Instead, it's about understanding that value creation is not a zero-sum game. When you help others succeed without broadcasting your role in their success, you create a network of people who have experienced your value firsthand. Seneca, one of the wealthiest Romans of his time and a Stoic philosopher, wrote extensively about the art of giving. He argued that a gift given with expectation of return is not a gift, but a transaction. True generosity expects nothing in return, not even gratitude. When you operate from this principle, something remarkable happens. People remember. They may not always acknowledge it publicly, but they remember who helped them when they needed it most. This strategic generosity should be selective and wise. The Stoics weren't naive. They understood that some people would take advantage of generosity. The key is to give in ways that align with your values and capabilities, without depleting yourself or enabling destructive behavior in others. Help the colleagues struggling with a project, but don't do their work for them. Share knowledge freely, but don't let others claim your ideas as their own without consequence. The balance is delicate but crucial. Fourth pillar: principled decision-making. The fourth pillar is making decisions based on principles rather than circumstances. When you have a clear set of values and principles that guide your decisions, and you stick to them, especially when it's costly to do so, you demonstrate a rare form of integrity that speaks volumes about your character. The Stoics had four cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Every decision was filtered through these virtues. When you make decisions this way, consistently and without fanfare, people begin to notice that you can be trusted. They may not always agree with your decisions, but they'll respect the consistency and integrity behind them. This principled approach becomes most powerful when it costs you something. When you turn down a profitable opportunity because it conflicts with your values. When you speak up for what's right, even when it's unpopular. When you take responsibility for a failure that wasn't entirely your fault. These moments of principled action, done without announcement or expectation of praise, build a reputation that no amount of self-promotion could ever achieve. Fifth pillar: patient development. The fifth and final pillar is patient development, the commitment to continuous improvement without needing to announce every milestone. The Stoics believed in the concept of pro-cop, moral and intellectual progress. This wasn't about reaching a destination, but about the journey of constant refinement. When you're quietly developing new skills, expanding your knowledge, and refining your character, you're building value that will eventually become undeniable. While others are posting about every course they take or book they read, you're quietly integrating new knowledge into your practice. While others announce their goals and intentions, you're silently working toward them. This patient development requires what the Stoics called discipline of desire. The ability to want what you have while working toward what you want. It's the paradox of being content with where you are while still striving for improvement. This balance prevents the desperate energy that comes from needing immediate recognition for every step forward. The power of strategic silence. Now let's delve deeper into the actual practice of strategic silence and how it amplifies your value in ways that words never could. Silence in the Stoic tradition is not merely the absence of speech. It's an active choice that demonstrates wisdom, confidence, and strength. When you master strategic silence, you master one of the most powerful tools for demonstrating value. Consider the business meeting where everyone is eager to share their ideas, talking over each other, desperately trying to be heard. Then there's you, listening intently, taking notes, observing the dynamics. When you finally speak, if you speak at all, your words carry weight because they're rare. They're considered because you've had time to think. They're valuable because they're scarce. This is the economics of communication. The scarcer something is, the more valuable it becomes. Strategic silence also protects you from one of the greatest destroyers of value: overexposure. When you share every thought, every achievement, every struggle, you become predictable and, frankly, exhausting to others. But when you're selective about what you share and when, you maintain an element of mystery that keeps people interested and engaged. They lean in when you speak, because they know it will be worth hearing. The Stoics understood that silence could be more eloquent than words. When Marcus Aurelius was criticized unjustly, he often chose not to respond, not out of weakness or inability to defend himself, but because he understood that some criticisms are best answered by continued right action rather than verbal defense. His silence wasn't passive, it was a powerful statement that he was above petty arguments and focused on what truly mattered. Reading the room without speaking, one of the most undervalued skills in demonstrating silent value, is the ability to read and respond to social dynamics without verbal intervention. This is what I call presence leadership, leading through your energy and presence rather than your words. When you walk into a room with calm confidence, when you maintain composure during chaos, when you show genuine interest in others without needing to redirect attention to yourself, you're practicing presence leadership. This skill requires deep awareness and emotional intelligence. You need to be able to read the subtle cues, the tension in someone's shoulders, the slight hesitation before they speak, the energy shift when certain topics arise. The Stoics practiced a form of mindfulness they called prosoch, continuous attention to the present moment. This attention allows you to respond to what's actually happening rather than what you think or assume is happening. When you develop this skill, you become invaluable in group settings. You're the one who notices when someone is struggling but too proud to ask for help. You're the one who deflects credit to team members who need confidence boosts. You're the one who can diffuse tension with a well-timed gesture or expression, no words needed. These silent contributions build your reputation as someone who makes every situation better simply by being there. The architecture of respect. Respect is not demanded or requested. It's architected through consistent behavior over time. When you understand this, you stop trying to convince people to respect you and start building the foundation that makes respect inevitable. This is perhaps the most profound shift in thinking that the Stoic philosophy offers on the subject of personal value. Think of respect like a building. You can't start with the penthouse. You need to lay the foundation first. The foundation is your character, your virtues, your principles. These are invisible to most people at first, buried underground where no one can see them, but they determine everything that comes after. If your foundation is solid, built on genuine virtue rather than pretense, the structure you build on top will be unshakable. The first floor of this building is your competence, your ability to do what you say you'll do, to solve problems, to add value in tangible ways. This is where most people stop, thinking that competence alone should earn them recognition. But the Stoics understood that competence without character is hollow. It might get you hired, but it won't earn you lasting respect. The second floor is reliability, showing up consistently, especially when it's inconvenient or difficult. This is where your value starts to become apparent to others. They begin to notice that you're always there, always delivering, always maintaining your standards. You don't need to point this out. The pattern speaks for itself. The third floor is wisdom, the ability to see beyond immediate circumstances to longer-term implications, to understand not just what to do, but why to do it. This wisdom manifests in your decisions, your advice when asked, your ability to remain calm when others panic. Again, this doesn't require announcement. Wisdom is self-evident to those who encounter it. The magnetism of non-neediness. One of the most counterintuitive aspects of demonstrating value in silence is that the less you need recognition, the more you tend to receive it. This isn't mystical thinking. It's practical psychology. Neediness repels, while self-sufficiency attracts. The Stoics understood this deeply, which is why they emphasized the importance of internal validation over external approval. When you're not desperate for recognition, you make better decisions. You're not constantly calculating how to make yourself look good. You're focused on doing what's right and effective. This authenticity is refreshing in a world full of people trying to manage their image. People are drawn to those who seem to have figured out something essential about life, how to be content and confident without constant external validation. This non-neediness also makes you more valuable in practical terms. When you're not driven by the need for recognition, you can take on important but unglamorous tasks. You can work behind the scenes to make others successful. You can focus on long-term value creation rather than short-term visibility. These contributions might go unrecognized in the moment, but they build a foundation of value that eventually becomes undeniable. Marcus Aurelius exemplified this principle throughout his life. Despite being the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, his personal writings reveal someone more concerned with living virtuously than with how history would remember him. Ironically, this lack of concern for his legacy is precisely what has made his legacy so enduring. His meditations, never intended for publication, have influenced millions precisely because they're the genuine reflections of someone trying to live well, not trying to impress others. The compound effect of silent value demonstrated in silence compounds over time in ways that proclaimed value never can. This is the principle of compound interest applied to reputation and relationships. Each small act of silent value creation adds to a growing reservoir of respect and trust that eventually overflows into recognition and opportunity. Think about it this way. Every time you deliver excellent work without demanding praise, you make a small deposit in your reputation account. Every time you help someone without broadcasting it, another deposit. Every time you handle a crisis with calm competence, another deposit. These deposits might seem insignificant individually, but over time, they compound into something substantial and undeniable. The beautiful thing about this compound effect is that it accelerates over time. The first year of demonstrating silent value might yield minimal visible results, but by year 2, people start to notice patterns. By year 3, your reputation precedes you. By year 5, opportunities seek you out rather than you having to chase them. This is the long game that most people aren't willing to play because they want immediate recognition for every action. Seneca wrote about this principle in his letters, noting that virtue is its own reward, but it also tends to bring external rewards over time. Not because the universe magically rewards good behavior, but because humans are social creatures who remember and value those who have genuinely contributed to their lives and success. Breaking through, invisibility. Now you might be thinking, this all sounds great, but what if my silent value is so silent that no one notices it at all? This is a valid concern, and one that requires strategic thinking. The goal isn't to be invisible. It's to let your value speak for itself rather than you speaking about your value. There's a crucial difference. The key is understanding the difference between visibility and self-promotion. Visibility is about ensuring your work and contributions can be seen by those who need to see them. Self-promotion is about telling everyone how great you are. The former is strategic and necessary. The latter is often counterproductive. To ensure your silent value doesn't go completely unnoticed, you need to master the art of strategic visibility. This means choosing your moments carefully. When you do speak up in meetings, make sure it's to add substantial value, not just to be heard. When you do share accomplishments, frame them in terms of team success or lessons learned rather than personal glorification. When you do accept recognition, do so gracefully and redirect some of the credit to others who contributed. Document your work and contributions, not for immediate broadcast, but for strategic sharing when appropriate. Keep a record of problems solved, value created, and people helped. This isn't for ego stroking, but for those moments when you need to demonstrate your track record, during performance reviews, when applying for new positions, or when someone directly asks about your experience. The strength of vulnerable confidence. One of the most powerful ways to demonstrate value in silence is through what I call vulnerable confidence. The ability to admit what you don't know while being secure in what you do know. This paradoxical combination is incredibly powerful because it demonstrates both humility and strength simultaneously. The Stoics understood that wisdom begins with acknowledging ignorance. Socrates, who greatly influenced Stoic thought, famously said that the only thing he knew was that he knew nothing. This wasn't false modesty. It was a recognition that true wisdom comes from understanding the limits of your knowledge and being comfortable with those limits. When you can say, "I don't know," without feeling diminished, when you can ask for help without feeling weak, when you can admit mistakes without losing confidence, you demonstrate a level of self-assurance that no amount of bravado can match. This vulnerable confidence is magnetic because it's so rare. Most people are either artificially confident, covering up insecurity with bluster, or genuinely insecure, constantly seeking validation. A person who is genuinely confident enough to be vulnerable stands out dramatically. This doesn't mean being self-deprecating or constantly highlighting your weaknesses. It means being honest about your capabilities and limitations, focusing your energy where you can add the most value, and being secure enough to let others shine in their areas of expertise. This approach builds trust faster than any self-promotion ever could, because it shows you're more interested in getting things right than in being right. The ritual of excellence. Creating rituals around excellence is crucial for sustaining the practice of demonstrating value in silence. The Stoics were big believers in daily practices that reinforce their principles. Marcus Aurelius had his morning reflections, Seneca had his evening reviews, Epictetus had his disciplines of desire, action, and assent. Your ritual of excellence might include a morning review of your priorities, ensuring they align with your values rather than with what will get you the most recognition. It might include an evening reflection on whether you sought validation during the day or whether you focused on value creation. It might include a weekly assessment of whether you're playing the long game of compound value or getting distracted by short-term recognition seeking. These rituals serve multiple purposes. First, they keep you grounded in your principles when the world is constantly tempting you to chase external validation. Second, they help you recognize and celebrate your own growth and contributions without needing others to do it for you. Third, they create a sustainable practice that doesn't rely on motivation or willpower alone, but becomes embedded in your daily routine. The power of these rituals is that they shift your focus from outcome to process. Instead of constantly checking whether others have noticed your value, you're focused on the daily practice of creating value. This shift is liberating because it puts you back in control. You can't control whether others recognize your contributions, but you can control whether you make contributions worth recognizing. Navigating the politics of recognition. Let's be honest about something the Stoics understood, but didn't always explicitly address. There are times when you need to navigate organizational or social politics to ensure your value isn't completely overlooked. This isn't about compromising your principles, but about being strategic in how you operate within imperfect systems. The key is to understand that ensuring your work is visible to decision makers isn't the same as self-promotion. If you're doing valuable work that your manager never sees because you're too principled to mention it, you're not being noble, you're being naive. Stoics valued wisdom. And wisdom includes understanding how to operate effectively in the world as it is, not as we wish it were. This might mean sending periodic updates to your manager about projects you're working on, framed in terms of organizational value rather than personal achievement. It might mean ensuring you're included in important meetings where decisions about your area of expertise are being made. It might mean building relationships with key stakeholders, not to manipulate them, but to ensure they understand the value you're creating. The difference between this strategic visibility and empty self-promotion is intention and execution. Strategic visibility is about ensuring the value you create can benefit the organization fully. Empty self-promotion is about making yourself look good, regardless of actual value created. One builds lasting respect, the other breeds resentment and skepticism, the echo effect of silent value. There's a phenomenon I've observed that I call the echo effect of silent value. When you consistently demonstrate value without seeking recognition, something interesting happens. Others start speaking about your value for you. This third-party validation is infinitely more powerful than any self-promotion could ever be. Think about how this works in practice. You help a colleague solve a difficult problem without making a big deal about it. That colleague, grateful and impressed, mentions it to others when your name comes up. Those others, having heard about your helpfulness from a credible source, are more likely to seek you out when they need assistance. When you help them too, without fanfare, they become additional voices in the chorus of your reputation. This echo effect creates a multiplier on your silent value. One act of quiet excellence might be witnessed by one person, but that person's testimony about you might reach 10 others. Those 10 might tell 10 more. Soon, you have a reputation that far exceeds what any self-promotion campaign could have achieved. And it's all based on genuine value creation rather than marketing. The beauty of the echo effect is that it's self-selecting for quality relationships. The people who appreciate and talk about your quiet contributions are generally those who value substance over style, action over talk. These are the people you want in your network, the ones whose opinions actually matter in the long run. The paradox of humility. True humility, the Stoics understood, is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. This distinction is crucial when it comes to demonstrating value in silence. You're not diminishing your worth or pretending your contributions don't matter. You're simply focused on the contributions themselves rather than on getting credit for them. This paradox of humility is powerful because it allows you to be simultaneously confident and modest. You know your worth, you know the value you create, but you don't need constant external validation of these facts. This creates an attractive energy that draws people to you. They sense that you have something figured out that they're still struggling with, how to be successful without being insufferable. Humility also protects you from one of the greatest dangers of success: hubris. The Greeks, who influenced the Stoics greatly, saw hubris as the greatest sin, the pride that comes before the fall. When you practice genuine humility, you remain grounded regardless of how successful you become. You remember that your success is built on the contributions of many, that circumstances beyond your control played a role, and that what has been given can be taken away. This doesn't mean false modesty or deflecting all compliments. When someone acknowledges your contribution, a simple thank you suffices. You don't need to minimize what you did or redirect all credit elsewhere. Accept recognition gracefully when it comes, but don't seek it out or depend on it for your sense of worth. The long game advantage. Playing the long game of silent value demonstration gives you advantages that those seeking immediate recognition never experience. First, you develop genuine expertise because you're focused on mastery rather than appearance. While others are spending time crafting the perfect self-promotional post, you're deepening your skills and knowledge. Second, you build resilience. When your sense of worth comes from within, from your alignment with your principles and the value you know you're creating, external setbacks don't destroy you. You can weather criticism, lack of recognition, even failure because your foundation is internal rather than external. Third, you develop patience. In a world of instant gratification, the ability to work toward long-term goals without needing immediate recognition is a superpower. You can take on projects that won't pay off for years, build relationships that won't yield immediate benefits, and develop skills that aren't currently in demand but will be in the future. Fourth, You avoid the trap of optimization for metrics rather than value. When you're not constantly trying to game the system for recognition, you can focus on creating genuine value, even when that value is hard to measure or doesn't fit neatly into performance metrics. The Stoics understood that life is long enough if you use it wisely. When you're not wasting energy on constant self-promotion, you have more energy for value creation. When you're not stressed about whether others recognize your worth, you have more mental space for creative problem-solving and strategic thinking, transforming criticism into strength. One of the most powerful aspects of demonstrating value in silence is how it changes your relationship with criticism. When your worth isn't dependent on others' opinions, criticism becomes data rather than an attack. You can evaluate it objectively. Is there truth here that can help me improve? Or is this simply noise I can ignore? The Stoics had a practice called negative visualization, where they would imagine losing things they valued. This wasn't pessimism, but preparation. Similarly, when you don't need constant positive recognition, negative recognition loses its sting. You can hear criticism without becoming defensive, evaluate it without emotion, and respond or not respond based on what's most effective rather than what will save face. This transformation is powerful in professional settings. While others are spending energy defending themselves against every slight, you're calmly evaluating feedback and implementing what's useful. While others are paralyzed by fear of criticism, you're taking calculated risks that lead to growth. While others are playing it safe to avoid negative attention, you're pushing boundaries and creating innovative solutions. When you do face unjust criticism, and you will, your response becomes a powerful demonstration of your value. Instead of engaging in verbal defense, you respond with continued excellent work. Instead of attacking your critics, you focus on your contribution. This response is so unexpected in our defensive culture that it often converts critics into admirers. The network effect of silent value. As you consistently demonstrate value in silence, you begin to attract a specific type of person into your network. Those who value substance over style, action over talk, character over charisma. This network becomes self-reinforcing, creating opportunities and connections that amplify your impact far beyond what you could achieve alone. These connections are different from typical professional networking. They're based on genuine respect and mutual value creation rather than transactional exchange. When someone in your network needs help, you provide it without keeping score. When you need help, it appears without you having to ask. This is the kind of network that sustains careers through decades, not just until the next opportunity comes along. The quality of this network matters more than its size. While others are collecting connections like baseball cards, you're building genuine relationships with people who share your values and appreciate your approach. These deep connections are worth more than thousands of superficial ones because they're based on demonstrated value rather than projected image. The creative power of constraint, operating within the constraint of silent value demonstration, actually enhances creativity. When you can't rely on talking about your ideas, you have to make them so good they speak for themselves. When you can't promote your solutions, you have to make them so effective that others promote them for you. This constraint forces a level of excellence that unlimited self-promotion never would. The Stoics understood that constraints, rather than limiting us, often liberate us. By accepting the constraint of not seeking recognition, you free yourself from the exhausting game of image management. You can focus all your creative energy on actual value creation rather than splitting it between creation and promotion. This creative power extends beyond your work to how you solve problems, build relationships, and navigate challenges. When talking your way through situations isn't an option, you develop other skills, reading people, understanding systems. finding leverage points that create maximum impact with minimum noise. These skills become your competitive advantage in a world where most people rely heavily on verbal persuasion. The revolution of being. What we're really talking about here is a revolution in being rather than seeming. The Stoics made this distinction central to their philosophy. Most people spend their lives trying to seem valuable, successful, important. But when you focus on being these things, the seeming takes care of itself. This revolution requires courage because it means accepting that sometimes your value will go unrecognized. It means doing the right thing even when no one is watching, excellence even when no one will know, helping even when you'll get no credit. But this is precisely what makes it so powerful. It's authentic in a world full of performance. When you commit to being rather than seeming, something profound happens. You stop being anxious about whether others see your value because you know your value exists regardless of recognition. You stop comparing yourself to others because you're on your own journey of development. You stop seeking validation because you've learned to validate yourself through alignment with your principles. This doesn't mean becoming isolated or indifferent to others. In fact, it often means becoming more connected and valuable to others because you're operating from a place of genuine strength rather than needy insecurity. You can give more because you need less. You can help others shine because you don't need the spotlight. You can take risks because your worth isn't on the line with every decision. The final transformation. As we near the end of this exploration, it's important to understand that demonstrating value in silence isn't just a strategy for success, it's a path to transformation. When you commit to this path, you don't just change how others see you, you change who you are at the fundamental level. The person who begins this journey, seeking a better way to gain recognition, ends it no longer needing recognition at all. The person who starts trying to prove their worth ends it knowing their worth so deeply that proof becomes irrelevant. The person who begins performing value ends it embodying value. This transformation is what the Stoics called eudaimonia, human flourishing. It's not happiness in the modern sense of feeling good all the time. It's the deep satisfaction that comes from living according to your principles, creating genuine value, and knowing that your worth isn't dependent on others' recognition. When you reach this state, something paradoxical happens. The recognition you no longer need often arrives in abundance, but by then, it's just a pleasant bonus rather than a necessity. You've discovered something far more valuable than recognition. You've discovered what it means to live with integrity, purpose, and genuine confidence. If you've made it this far, you've already demonstrated something important: the patience and focus to engage with complex ideas rather than seeking quick fixes. This quality alone sets you apart in our attention deficit culture. But knowledge without action is merely potential. The question now is, what will you do with what you've learned? Start tomorrow with one simple practice. Choose one area where you've been seeking recognition and redirect that energy toward value creation. Maybe it's stopping yourself from mentioning an achievement in conversation and instead asking about others' challenges you might help with. Maybe it's doing excellent work on a project that won't be attributed to you. Maybe it's helping someone succeed without them knowing you played a role. This isn't about becoming a martyr or never accepting recognition. It's about shifting your primary focus from being recognized to being valuable. It's about playing the long game in a short game world. It's about building a foundation of genuine worth that no external circumstance can shake. Subscribe to Stoic Mindset if you haven't already, because this journey of transformation isn't a destination, but a daily practice. Hit the like button, not because I need the validation, but because it helps others discover these ideas that might transform their lives as they've transformed mine and millions of others throughout history. Share this video with someone who you think embodies these principles, someone whose quiet excellence deserves recognition even if they don't seek it. or share it with someone who's struggling with feeling undervalued, who needs to understand that their worth isn't determined by others' recognition, but by their own alignment with virtue and value creation. Remember, the path of demonstrating value in silence is not the easy path. In many ways, it's harder than constant self-promotion because it requires genuine excellence rather than just the appearance of it. It requires patience in a world of instant gratification, depth in a world of surfaces, and integrity in a world of image management. But it's also the path to genuine fulfillment, lasting respect, and the kind of success that doesn't depend on external validation. It's the path the greatest leaders, thinkers, and contributors throughout history have walked. And it's a path available to you starting right now. The Stoics believed that every moment is a chance to practice virtue, to demonstrate value, to become who you're capable of becoming. This moment, right now, is your chance. Will you take it? Will you commit to demonstrating your value through action rather than announcement, through consistency rather than proclamation, through being rather than seeming? The choice is yours. And it's a choice you'll need to make not once, but every day, in every interaction, with every opportunity to either seek recognition or create value. Choose wisely, choose courageously, and choose in silence. Let your life be your argument, your actions be your advertisement, and your character be your credential. Thank you for joining me on Stoic Mindset. Until next time, remember,